The dream that started it all. In a small village tucked between hills and dusty roads in southeastern Nigeria, a girl named Amara lived with dreams too big for the boundaries of her world. With skin like polished bronze, wide curious eyes, and a heart full of stories, Amara had always believed she was born for more. But the mirror told her a different story. "You're beautiful, Amara," people would often say. But there was always a but. But your cheeks are too round. But your arms are too big. But you'll never fit in a beauty queen's gown. From the age of 9, Amara had dreamed of becoming Miss Nigeria. She would watch old pageant clips on her uncle's tiny television set, her eyes sparkling as the winners walked in glittering gowns. She'd imitate their catwalk down the family compound's narrow path, using her mother's wrapper as a sash. But the laughter of her neighbors would echo louder than her footsteps. "Beauty queens are slim like broomsticks," one cousin joked. "Not like chubby yam sellers." The words stung, but Amara never let them show. Behind every forced smile, she tucked her pain away like folded fabric in a trunk. Still, her dream burned brighter. Her mother, Mama Ifeoma, was a quiet woman who believed in practical living. She often pulled Amara aside when she caught her mimicking pageant queens in front of the cracked mirror. "Amara," she'd say, "this pageant life you chase, it's full of heartbreak. You are too soft for such a hard world. Why not think of teaching? Or nursing? Something noble, something safe." Amara would nod politely, but her heart never agreed. She loved her mother, but she couldn't abandon the dream that made her feel alive. After finishing university with a degree in mass communication, Amara was posted to Lagos for her National Youth Service. When she saw the posting letter, her hands trembled. "Lagos," she whispered. "The city of dreams." Mama Ifeoma clutched her hand and blessed her journey with trembling lips. "Go well, my daughter. But be wise. Lagos will show you everything you want and everything you fear." Amara arrived in Lagos with one travel bag, a notebook full of plans, and hope as her only shield. Her NYSC orientation camp was filled with laughter, drills, and endless introductions. Though she tried to blend in, her size made her stand out. In group activities, some people quietly ignored her, others whispered when she passed. Still, she pushed forward, joining every competition her platoon signed up for, including the camp beauty pageant. She was the only plus-size contestant, and many people raised their eyebrows when she walked on stage. Though she didn't win, Amara held her head high as she clapped for the winner. "This is just the beginning," she told herself that night, watching the stars from her bunk bed. After the camp, Amara was posted to a media house in Ikeja. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave her access to people in entertainment, journalists, stylists, sometimes even celebrities. One evening, while scrolling Instagram, she saw an advert for an open modeling audition at a major agency. Her heart skipped. This is it. The next morning, she woke early, dressed carefully in her best outfit, applied light makeup, and whispered a prayer before leaving. She arrived at the MA modeling agency and was stunned by the crowd. Dozens of tall, slim girls filled the hall like elegant trees swaying in the breeze. Amara felt like a stubborn bush in their midst. Still, she walked to the registration desk and wrote her name with a firm hand. When they called her up for audition, the room fell awkwardly silent. 3 judges sat behind a long table. One, a woman with high cheekbones and red lipstick, tilted her head and gave Amara a long stare. "Name?" she asked, flatly. "Amara Okonkwo." "Okay, Amara. Let's see you walk." Amara stepped forward. She walked like she had practiced for years, chin up, shoulders back, steps graceful. But before she was halfway across the room, one of the judges let out a soft chuckle. Another whispered loudly, "Is this a joke?" The red-lipped woman leaned back in her chair and said, "Modeling is about image, darling. You should have read the flyer better." Amara stopped mid-walk. Her breath caught in her chest. Laughter erupted from the far corner of the room. Her ears burned. She turned and walked out, face burning with humiliation. Outside, she sat on a bench, heart pounding, hands shaking. The tears came, hot and fast, but she wiped them away quickly. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry. Not for them. Rough day. The voice came from beside her. Amara turned to see a tall, graceful woman in sunglasses and a head wrap. She had sharp features and a calm presence. I saw your walk, the woman said. You have presence. But they don't see it. They only see size. Amara nodded silently, unsure what to say. I'm Zeno, the woman said, offering a hand. Amara. Zeno sat beside her and lowered her voice. Don't let their words ruin you. I've been there. I know what it feels like to be told you're not enough. Amara blinked. You. But you're tall and thin now, Zeno finished. Yes. But not always. I was a size 16 before. And no one wanted to hear my name. Amara stared, stunned. How? There's a way, Zeno said, lowering her voice. A place, hidden from the spotlight. A clinic. Not one of those Instagram scam centers. This one is different. Quiet. Safe. Fast. Amara's heart raced. Is it surgery? No, Zeno replied. Nothing that invasive. It's something new. But it works. If you're serious about this dream, I can take you. Amara hesitated. Is it expensive? Zeno smiled. The cost is not always in naira, my dear. Sometimes, the price is something else. That night, Amara lay in bed and stared at the ceiling fan above her. The words of the judge rang in her head, modeling is about image. Then Zeno's words followed, the cost is not always in naira. She clutched her pillow and whispered to the dark, I just want to be seen. Just once. Not mocked. Not judged. Just seen. When morning came, she sent a text to Zeno, I'm ready. Take me there. The sun was barely up when Amara boarded the kiki that would take her to Suru Clinic, the place Zeno had spoken of in hushed tones. The streets of Lagos were already alive with movement, the city breathing with its usual chaos. But Amara barely noticed. Her mind raced with questions, fear, hope, and desperation twirling like a storm inside her. Zeno sat beside her, legs crossed elegantly, unfazed by the bumpy ride. Are you sure this is safe? Amara asked for the third time. Zeno turned and gave her a knowing smile. Safe. No one chasing dreams asks for safety. You asked for change, and this is how change begins. Suru Clinic didn't look like much from the outside, just a worn-down building tucked behind a fabric shop. But the moment they stepped inside, the air shifted. It smelled sterile, cold, with the faint scent of mint and something unplaceable, like wet soil. A woman in a grey uniform led them down a narrow hallway. The walls were lined with black and white photos of models, none smiling, all hauntingly perfect. At the end of the hallway stood Dr. Kolu. He was tall, with sleek hair, unnaturally white teeth, and eyes that never blinked long enough to trust. He wore a long white coat that brushed the tiled floor. You must be Amara, he said, his voice smooth like melted chocolate but laced with something darker. Zeno spoke highly of you. Amara forced a smile. She said you help girls like me. Girls like you. Dr. Kolu echoed, walking around her slowly. No, Amara. I help women who are ready to become legends. He stopped in front of her and looked into her eyes. How much do you want it? Amara hesitated, then whispered, more than anything. Inside the treatment room, the lights were dim. A silver tray sat beside the patient bed, holding a single syringe filled with a clear, glowing liquid. This is stream fluid, Dr. Kolu said, lifting the syringe with reverence. A formula that speeds up metabolism, dissolves fat, and shapes the body in ways no gym ever could. It's fast. It's powerful. But it is not ordinary. What's in it? Amara asked, eyes wide. Dr. Kolu smiled. A blend of science and nature. Plant extracts, hormone catalysts, and an ancient root only found in the mountains of Congo. It has worked wonders for those who respect it. What do you mean? There are rules, he said, his tone suddenly serious. 1 injection per week. No alcohol. No overexertion. And most importantly, stop after 6 weeks. Beyond that, the body begins to suffer. Amara looked at the syringe, then at her reflection in a glass cabinet nearby, round face, soft arms, a body that had never been welcomed in her dreams. I'll do it, she whispered. The sting of the injection was sharp but brief. Almost immediately, Amara felt a strange warmth surge through her veins, like something had been set alight inside her. She sat in silence for a moment, waiting for a reaction, nausea, dizziness, but none came. Zeno helped her to her feet. Give it a week, she said. And watch the mirror closely. The changes came faster than Amara expected. By the 4th day, her face looked sharper. Her waist narrowed. Clothes that had once hugged her too tightly now slid over her skin with ease. She woke up energized, her appetite reduced, her reflection transformed. By the end of the 2nd week, the transformation was undeniable. Her old jeans slipped off without unbuttoning. The security guard at her office barely recognized her. Even her social media was buzzing, old photos were replaced by carefully filtered selfies, and the likes flooded in. Who is this? People commented. Wow, weight loss goal. She didn't respond. She just watched. And smiled. By the 6th week, Amara had dropped over 20 kilograms. Her skin glowed, her cheekbones stood proud, and her eyes sparkled like Lagos traffic lights. It was time. She returned to MA modeling agency, head held high. The receptionist, who had once barely looked at her, now stood up as she entered. Good afternoon, ma'am. Are you here for a shoot? Amara smirked. I'm here for an audition. The room she once walked through in shame now felt like a stage. The same judges sat behind the glass table, but this time, their eyes didn't hold mockery. They held curiosity. Name, the red-lipped judge asked again. Amara Okonkwo. Let's see you walk. And she did, effortlessly, like the breeze of Harmattan. No sneakers, no whispers. Just silence. Then a soft clap. You've improved, the judge said. Sign here. We'd like to start you with a skincare campaign next week. That night, Amara cried into her pillow, not from pain, but from joy. She had done it. The world that once laughed was now clapping. Her phone buzzed non-stop, calls from agencies, DMs from photographers, even an invite to a red carpet event. But as her fame rose, so did something else, a quiet tiredness that never left. At first, it was just fatigue. Then dizziness. Then nights where her appetite vanished completely. She'd eat 1 spoon of rice and feel nauseous. Some mornings, her hands shook as she applied makeup. She brushed it off. Maybe I'm just overworking. But one day, during a shoot for a designer brand, she blacked out. Only for a second, but long enough to fall. The photographer rushed over. The stylist found her. The shoot was cancelled. Back at Suru Clinic, Dr. Kolu examined her in silence. His expression had lost its warmth. You've been taking more than 1 injection per week, haven't you? Amara looked away. I needed faster results. The pressure. I told you the rules, he snapped. This is not some over-the-counter drug. This is powerful. Your body is beginning to reject itself. I can't stop now, Amara said, voice shaking. I'm finally being noticed. I've waited my whole life for this. Dr. Kolu's tone softened slightly. You have the body now. Use it wisely. Rest. Recover. Stop the injections. Amara nodded. But deep inside, she knew she wouldn't stop. Not yet. Days turned to weeks. The fatigue worsened. But so did the pressure. New campaigns. Magazine shoots. Runways. And in each event, the praise made it worth it. You look stunning. You're glowing. Body goals. She clung to those words like lifelines. One evening, as she prepared for another commercial shoot, she opened her drawer and pulled out the final vial of trim fluid. Her hand trembled. Just one more, she told herself. One last push. The needle slid in smoothly. The fire returned to her veins. But something else returned, too, a sharp pang in her stomach, quick and cruel. She dropped the syringe, clutching her side. Her vision blurred. And somewhere, in the back of her mind, a whisper echoed, the cost is not always in naira. The spotlight shone brightly on the runway at the Lagos Fashion Gala, but all Amara could see were black dots dancing in her vision. Her heels clicked perfectly against the polished floor, her hips swayed with precision, and the audience stared in awe, but something inside her was crumbling. As she neared the end of the runway, her smile faded. Suddenly, her knees buckled. A sharp pain stabbed through her stomach like fire in her veins. The crowd gasped as Amara collapsed, her slender frame hitting the floor with a hard thud. Cameras flashed. Models screamed. The music stopped. Within moments, she was surrounded by staff, designers, and security. Her ears rang. Her lips moved, but no sound escaped. Then everything went dark. Amara woke up in a cold room, a white sheet pulled to her chin. Machines beeped quietly beside her. The sharp scent of antiseptic filled the air. Across the room, sitting in a shadowy corner, was Dr. Kolu. You almost died, Amara, he said calmly, standing up and walking toward her bed. She tried to speak, but her throat felt dry. The injections, he continued, have done enough damage. Your kidneys are straining. Your liver is exhausted. You can't take any more. But I still have shoots booked, she croaked. Dr. Kolu gave her a long, unreadable look. Fame means nothing if you're buried before your first magazine cover. Tears welled in her eyes. I can't go back. I can't be who I was before. I worked so hard. I gave up everything. Dr. Kolu leaned closer. There may be another way. But it is older, stronger, and not without risk. Later that night, Amara sat in Dr. Kolu's private office, a room that looked more like a shrine than a clinic. Tall wooden shelves held jars filled with strange powders and dried roots. The only light came from a flickering oil lamp. Dr. Kolu placed a small wooden box on the table and slowly opened it. Inside, cushioned in velvet, was a pale, glistening egg, no bigger than a walnut, yet somehow glowing faintly under the lamp. This, he said softly, is an ovunculum. An ancient gift. Used by queens in pre-colonial times, warriors' wives who had to stay lean and strong without starving themselves. Amara leaned closer, staring at it. It's alive. Dr. Kolu nodded. Inside the egg is a living organism. Not harmful. Not aggressive. It enters your system and regulates your body. It consumes excess calories, balancing your weight, giving you energy. Amara's eyes widened. Like a parasite. A partnership, he said. You feed it moderately, it helps you maintain balance. You eat normally, it ensures you never gain too much. And in 6 months, we extract it. Is it safe? Dr. Kolu paused. For those who follow the rules, yes. But it is sacred. It was not made for vanity, but for survival. Abuse it, and it changes. Amara looked down at her trembling hands. What do I have to do? Dr. Kolu handed her the egg with a piece of leaf-wrapped herb. Swallow it tonight. Fast for 2 days. Then eat slowly. Listen to your body. And return to me in 1 month. Amara stared at the tiny life pulsing in her palm. Her heart pounded. What would it cost to stay beautiful forever? That night, alone in her apartment, Amara stood in front of her mirror. Her skin looked paler. Her collarbones more pronounced. Her eyes tired. She placed the egg on her tongue and swallowed, chasing it down with the herb. A strange warmth filled her belly, followed by silence. No pain. No nausea. Just stillness. She slept deeply that night, the first peaceful sleep in weeks. Days passed, and Amara followed the instructions carefully. She fasted, then ate light meals, fruits, vegetables, soups. Her energy returned, slowly at first, then like a flood. By the end of the week, she was back at the agency, working with strength and grace. Her eyes glowed again. Her face regained its radiance. The other models stared in disbelief. You look incredible, whispered one of them. I thought you were sick. Amara smiled. I just needed to rest. Campaign offers returned like a river after the rain. Brands wanted her. Stylists praised her body. Magazines requested her for cover shoots. But the best part? She could eat again. Jollof rice, grilled fish, omelette, pepper soup, she savored every bite. Yet her body stayed lean, toned, perfect. No bloating, no weight gain. Just balance. She almost forgot the egg even existed. Almost. It began slowly, a small gurgle in her stomach late one night after dinner. Amara pressed her palm to her abdomen, confused. Then came the hunger. Not ordinary hunger. Not the gentle growl before a meal. This was deep. Hollow. Like something inside her was calling out, demanding more. She ate again. Bread. Bananas. Ground nuts. Still hungry. She drank water. Took tea. Lay down. But the emptiness remained, a pressure under her ribs, like a calling, a movement. She lifted her shirt and looked at her stomach in the mirror. It looked normal. Flat. Smooth. But when she pressed gently, something shifted beneath the surface, like a slow wave on the skin. Her breath caught in her throat. The next morning, she returned to Dr. Kolu's clinic. I feel something, she said, sitting across from him. Like it's moving. Dr. Kolu nodded, unbothered. That's normal. It's feeding. Adjusting. I'm always hungry, she said. No matter how much I eat. He frowned slightly. You may be overfeeding it. It adjusts to your intake. The more you eat, the more it expects. Amara's hands gripped her knees. It feels like it's alive. Like it's not part of me. Dr. Kolu leaned in. It is part of you now. But remember what I told you, it is sacred. Not a pet. Not a toy. If you feed it too much, it will grow. Too fast, and it will lose its balance. She nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in her throat. What happens if it grows too fast? Dr. Kolu looked her dead in the eye. Then it stops feeding on food. And starts feeding on you. Amara left the clinic in silence, her thoughts a tangled web of fear and denial. That night, she tried to eat less, just a plate of beans and plantain. But her stomach rumbled loudly, almost angrily. She ignored it and lay in bed. In the middle of the night, she woke up drenched in sweat, her belly cramping. She rushed to the kitchen and devoured 3 slices of bread, some leftover rice, and a cup of milk, anything to stop the hunger. It worked, temporarily. But in the silence of the night, as she lay curled under her sheets, she felt the thing inside her shift again, a slow slide under her skin, like a snake resting just beneath her ribs. She tried to sleep. But the emptiness inside her whispered one word over and over again, the monster within. Amara stood beneath the blazing lights of a luxury fashion show in Victoria Island, her name now whispered in circles she had once only dreamed about. Her images graced billboards. Her poses flooded Instagram. Brands praised her, fans adored her, and the fashion industry finally recognized her. But behind the confident smile she wore like armor, Amara was unraveling. The hunger had become unbearable. It came like waves in the night, furious, demanding. She'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, clawing her way to the kitchen like a woman possessed. She devoured yam porridge, plantain chips, packets of biscuits, cartons of juice, anything to silence the gaping hole inside her. And yet, her body never changed. No weight gain. No bloating. Only the quiet, constant twisting under her skin, a reminder that she was no longer alone inside her body. One morning, after a long night of sleepwalking through her fridge, Amara stood before her mirror and slowly lifted her shirt. There it was. Movement. Not a pulse. Not digestion. A slow, serpentine slither beneath her skin, just under her ribs, to the left of her belly button. Her breath hitched. She pressed a hand against it. The thing paused, and then twitched violently. Her legs gave out. Later that day, she met Zino at a cafe in Lekki. Amara tried to hide her exhaustion behind makeup and sunglasses, but Zino noticed. She always did. You look like you haven't slept in weeks, Zino said, stirring her tea. You okay? I'm just tired, Amara mumbled. Zino leaned forward. Amara, I've seen your stomach moving. Last week during the shoot, your makeup artist nearly screamed. You brushed it off like it was nothing, but girl, something's wrong. Amara's lips trembled. I think it's growing. Zino's face paled. You need to go back to Kolu. Now. That evening, Amara sat in Dr. Kolu's office again, the same lamp glowing, the same ancient shelves lined with bottles and bones. He didn't look surprised when she told him. I was afraid of this, he said softly. Amara's voice cracked. You said it would help me. You said it was sacred. And it is, he said, pacing. But sacred things are not meant to be abused. That egg was once used by queens, yes. But only in times of famine. To keep their bodies strong without food. It was a gift of survival, not vanity. Then why give it to me, she cried. Because you begged, he said calmly. And because you wouldn't stop until someone gave you what you thought you needed. Amara swallowed hard. What is it really? Dr. Kolu sighed and turned to face her fully. It is a spiritual parasite, bred from a forgotten forest in the hills of Cameroon. It forms a bond with its host, feeding on what you consume. In return, it gives strength and beauty. But the more you feed it, the more it grows. And once it matures, he paused. It begins to consume the host from within. Amara felt her whole body go cold. What do I do? There is a ritual, he said. It must be removed before it matures fully. But it's dangerous. Painful. You must fast for 2 days. You must drink a root brew and enter a heated bath with herbs and salt. Once the creature is lured out, it can be captured and killed, but only by you. She stared at him, numb. Why me? Because you fed it. It sees you as its home. Only the hand that invited it can cast it out. But Amara wasn't ready. Not yet. Not when her face was on the cover of Modern Africa magazine. Not when she just signed a deal with a luxury fashion brand in Paris. Not when every room she entered turned heads. She told Dr. Kolu she'd do it next week. But next week never came. The hunger worsened. Amara now ate 5 times a day, ready in her kitchen in the middle of the night like a ghost. She kept snacks in her handbag, beneath her bed, inside her car. And always, after she ate, the thing inside her stirred. One night, she woke up screaming, a dream where she was looking into a mirror, only to see her stomach split open and a long black worm crawl out, its mouth open and dripping with slime. She called Zeno at 3 a.m., sobbing. I think it's eating me. A few days later, during a photo shoot at a luxury hotel in Ikoyi, Amara felt something new, a sharp jolt, like a blade piercing her from the inside. She gasped, clutching her side. Are you okay? The photographer called. I just need water, she said, barely able to stand. She rushed into the changing room and slammed the door behind her. Tears streamed down her face. She lifted her blouse and stared at her stomach. This time, the movement was fast, a slither from left to right. Then a visible bulge near her ribcage. She dropped to the floor, even. Suddenly, her belly lurched outward, and something pressed against her skin from the inside. Like a fist. No, she whispered. It was trying to get out. She scrambled to her feet, grabbed her bag, and fled the building, ignoring the shouts behind her. Zeno called, but she didn't answer. Her fingers trembled as she texted Dr. Kolu. It's coming. Help me. Back at the clinic, Dr. Kolu was already preparing. He had drawn a chalk circle on the floor, placed bowls of herbs around it, and heated a large brass pot filled with a thick, dark liquid. Strip down, he instructed, without looking at her. Amara removed her clothes with shaky hands. Sit inside the circle. She obeyed. He handed her a cup. The liquid inside smelled like burnt wood and bitter leaves. Drink all of it. She gagged, but forced it down. As soon as the final drop touched her tongue, a fire exploded in her chest. She screamed, clutching her belly as the parasite began to thrash violently. Dr. Kolu chanted in a language older than the earth, his voice rising, the lamps flickering. Amara convulsed. Her eyes rolled back. She could feel the creature clawing upward, pushing through her organs, fighting to escape. Don't let it reach your heart. Dr. Kolu shouted. Push it down. But it wasn't listening. Suddenly, the creature lunged, and a sharp pain ripped through her throat. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Her body arched. Dr. Kolu reached for a carved bone knife and approached. I can cut it out, but you bleed. You may not survive. Amara, her voice raw, cried out, I'll do it. Just tell me how. Amara could barely breathe as she stumbled through the crowded Lagos streets, clutching her abdomen as though trying to hold herself together. Her vision blurred. Her steps were uneven. And inside her, the parasite was moving, no longer hiding, but riding with furious purpose. Her fingers trembled as she called Dr. Kolu's number. It rang once. He answered. Amara. I can't hold it, she gasped. It's moving fast. It's trying to get out through my throat, I think. Come now, he said. Hurry. We have no time. By the time Amara burst into Suru Clinic, her knees were giving out. She collapsed onto a chair, her breath ragged. Dr. Kolu rushed to her side. One look at her face, pale, sweaty, lips slightly blue, and he knew it was too late. He didn't speak. He simply walked to a dark cabinet, unlocked it, and removed a small gourd-shaped flask bound with red twine and a carved wooden stopper. This is called onuola, he said. A root tonic made from plants that grow in cursed soil. It's dangerous, but it will force the parasite out, one way or another. Amora's eyes widened. Will it kill me? He stared at her. If the parasite stays inside, you'll be dead within days anyway. This is your only chance. With shaking hands, Amara took the flask. Once you drink it, he continued, go home. Lock yourself in. Fast for 2 hours. Then lie down, and pray your will is stronger than its hunger. The journey back to her apartment was a blur of honking cars, shouting vendors, and pounding pain. As she unlocked her door, a sharp stab shot through her ribs, she screamed and collapsed against the wall. She crawled to the bathroom, locking the door behind her. Everything was spinning. In front of the mirror, she saw herself clearly for the first time in weeks. The same face that had once lit up magazine covers was now gaunt, drained, haunted. Her lips were cracked. Her eyes, sunken. Her stomach twitched beneath her shirt like something alive. She uncorked the flask and drank. The taste was bitter, metallic, like blood and ash. She stripped off her clothes, grabbed a bucket of warm salt water she had prepared earlier, and sat inside the bathtub. The silence was heavy. The air was thick with fear. Then, it began. The first cramp was like being stabbed. Amara clutched her stomach and screamed. Her muscles locked, her back arched. Something inside her was twisting, squirming, panicking. Her body convulsed as the parasite began to push upward, violently, desperately, as if trying to escape through any exit. Her skin bulged unnaturally. Her throat constricted. Her mouth opened, and she vomited violently into a bowl. Mucus. Blood. Nothing else. But the creature wasn't finished. A horrible pressure built in her lower stomach, unbearable, burning, until finally, she felt something sliding down her intestines. She reached between her legs and screamed as something wet and thick began to push out of her, inch by inch, like a rope of nightmares. It hit the top floor with a wet slap. A giant, pale worm, longer than her arm, with a pulsating body and tiny black eyes, writhed in agony. Its mouth opened wide, ringed with teeth, and let out a shrill, high-pitched screech. Then, it turned toward her. Amara backed up, horrified. The worm lunged. Its slimy body slapped against her chest, its mouth snapping. It wrapped around her waist, climbing up her body, wrapping around her neck. She struggled, gasping, choking. Kill it by the head, Dr. Kolu's voice echoed in her memory. Her fingers scrambled across the edge of the tub, and landed on the ritual herb bundle she had prepared. With all her strength, she lit it with a match, the fire blazing in the tight bathroom. The worm hissed and recoiled. Amara, eyes blazing with pain and fury, grabbed the burning herb and shoved it against the worm's head. The creature screamed, a horrible, human-like sound, and thrashed violently. Smoke rose. The stench was unbearable. It tried to flee, but Amara held it tight. With a final scream, the worm burst into ash and black liquid, staining the tiles, then dissolving into nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. Amara lay trembling in the bathtub, her body burned, her skin bruised, but her heart still beating. She had survived. It took 3 weeks before Amara could walk properly again. Her lungs hurt. Her ribs ached. Her body bore the marks of the battle, literal scars across her midsection and neck. When the agency called, she ignored them. When magazine editors emailed, she politely declined. When fans begged for a comeback, she stayed silent. Instead, she packed her things and left Lagos. Back in her village, Amara returned home to Mama Ifeoma's arms. The woman held her tightly, silently, as if afraid she'd break. I almost lost myself, Mama, Amara whispered one evening, as they sat under the mango tree. Her mother nodded slowly. But you found your way back. That's all that matters. Weeks turned to months. Amara no longer walked runways, she walked classrooms. She began a small initiative called Real Roots, a program for young girls teaching body positivity, self-worth, and the dangers of beauty obsession. She told them her story, not the modeling version with cameras and catwalks, but the real one. Of hunger. Of pride. Of pain. And of survival. In time, her scars faded, but she never hid them. Each one was a reminder that she had been tested, and she had endured. One day, as she stood before a mirror in her village school, helping a young girl adjust her dress before a cultural performance, the girl looked up and asked, "Auntie Amara, were you ever famous?" Amara smiled. "Once," she said. "But real beauty isn't measured in inches or praise." She knelt, gently brushing the girl's cheeks. "It lives in truth, in self-love, and in every scar that tells your story." The end.